So just start it once we all clap. We'll go on 1. 3, 2, 1.
Oh.
I kind of missed my hand.
You kind of missed a little bit?
Yeah, I missed a little bit. It wasn't solid.
No? You want to go again?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Alright, welcome everyone to our inaugural episode of the TAMUSA Esports Podcast. I'm your host, Tim, and today we have a great panel of guests with us. Before we get into introducing everyone, I'm going to cover some announcements. This Friday at 7 p.m., Joey here is going to have his welcome back stream to kick off the semester. And then our first weekend of February, we have our community night and the start of our Smash tournament. But let's get straight into the guests. We'll start with Art down here if you want to introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Art Olgue. I'm the director of Recreational Sports and oversee the esports program.
Let's go all the way down, yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm the esports graduate assistant, and I handle all of our competitive teams, content crew, and our day-to-day operations.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, E to the K to the L to the Ipsy, a.k.a. Joey. I am the head streamer and content crew manager here at TAMUSA Esports. I'm also a senior business management major, and I am graduating in May.
You have to shout it out so people
shout it
know.
out.
He has to.
You know, we're almost done.
Yeah.
It's been a grueling 4 years, I gotta say.
People are just like, man, in that podcast, we need them.
We need
We need them.
I appreciate you staying on brand, too.
Yep, I have to.
Gotta stay
The
on brand.
personality.
I'm gonna be like, hi, Joey.
Uh,
Oh, James. Can't do that.
Nope.
Gotta stay, gotta keep the
I
energy at an
love
11.
e-gaming.
Yes.
Alright, well, I think a very simple question to start this off is, like, how did y'all all get into gaming? Was it, through an older sibling, through parent, family, friend? What was it?
So, yeah. So for me, gaming, I'm going to date myself here, guys. The very first game I played was Super Mario Brothers, like the OG.
The OG.
Nintendo
OG.
Entertainment System on a black and white TV. I didn't even get the color at the time. So I paved the way. You're welcome. Thank you guys for
Thank you.
This
We
might-
appreciate
little
that.
You
encouragement.
walk so we can
Appreciation. That's right.
This
Yeah.
might sound like a Zoomer thing. I didn't know that, was Mario ever in black and white?
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about I had a black and white TV.
Like, you just
Oh,
could
so the
not
TV
get it.
just
You
couldn't
couldn't-
be color.
You didn't have the
Okay, I
technology
was
for
like-
the color.
That's correct.
I was about to say, I don't even... Did
No,
y'all
no.
know about that?
A little trivia there for you, right?
That's
No, actually, it was all just for fun and stuff like that. There was a small Super Mario's competition at our mall in Big Spring. Again, dating myself, and I actually placed in that competition. So
Let's go.
that's
Nice.
really
The
where
first
where
pro
some of that-
player.
exactly right. That's really where I got my interest in gaming and stuff like that. But I did a lot of PlayStation 2 in college.
That was
So
my
you know what I mean?
console.
Yeah, that NCAA Football is
Oh, yeah.
was my forte. So I'm really looking forward to when that finally comes out again, because that's gonna be, I haven't bought a PS5, but when it happens,
You can.
and if I can get my hands on one, that's what's gonna happen.
They've been popping up a lot more. I went to GameStop this past week, and they had like 3 or 4 of them, but they were all bundles. So you had to pay like
An extra,
Yeah.
67
I like how you
bucks.
said they're all coming out again, and then you followed up with, yeah, there was 3 or 4.
Okay, 3 or 4 is like
That's a lot
usually,
now.
yeah, compared
That's so
to
hard
That's
to
number one.
impressive.
Yeah,
The fact that they weren't already spoken for, and there wasn't like people street fighting for the
Yeah.
console, that was
that was crazy.
So anyway, that's sort of my intro into gaming. As we started doing the research on this, just a little spoiler alert, I gained a lot of appreciation for what esports brings to this community, to this institution, and we'll talk more about that later. But this has been an amazing experience.
Awesome. Thank
I
you.
got into gaming mainly, you brought it up, PS2, but you said in your college days. I think it was more in my early middle school days that the PS2 came out, maybe elementary actually,
Awesome.
that the PS2 came out, and that was my console. And funnily enough, I actually didn't play. I feel like a lot of kids my age back then, played like a lot of Nintendo, played a lot of like competitive games like Call of Duty and stuff like that. For me, it was actually horror games. Like I played a lot of the survival horror games on PS2, the ones that were super popular, like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and then one I don't think it's like popularly known, but it was called Fatal Frame. So I played a lot of those. I actually didn't get into competitive games up until I started working for esports. Like I started working here. I think the only competitive game I really played was Overwatch, and I had played that from literally when it released up until now. But now my game is kind of Valorant, and I'm not the best at it, but I'm working on it. I think getting into competitive has really like opened my eyes to a lot more games and a lot more about esports. So it's kind of fun. I kind of like it. Hopefully I get better at some point. I don't think I'm gonna go pro, sadly, but I'm loving it. It's fun.
Awesome.
So, history of how Joey got into gaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a big gamer for the longest time. My uncles played Legend of Zelda, and I would watch them play it. I wouldn't really play it myself. The first system I ever got was a Xbox One S back when I was 17. That was my first ever
this is super
console.
recent.
Yeah, like this was what was that 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first system ever, and even at that, I used it for TV and to play Injustice 2. Yeah. Injustice 2 was the big game that I got into a lot. Played Aquaman. I played that for hours. That was like, what was that, 2017 summer, going into senior year of high school. Played till like 5 in the morning all the time. I was just grinding that game hours on end every day. But I would take breaks here and there, so I didn't game like too much. Like they were little, but it was still like long periods of time. But when I really got into gaming was actually here. I took a break from it, didn't really play competitive games, didn't really play a lot of like even casual games. But when I got an opportunity here at esports through our former head coach, that's what really got me into gaming on a competitive side, because I didn't know esports. I knew that there was CDL, I knew that Overwatch was a big game, but I didn't really know competitive esports until I got into this position. And since then, I've loved it. I've loved the streaming side of it. I don't consider myself a competitive gamer. I don't feel like I have the
drive for
the
it.
drive or the talent for it. Like I can't pick up games that easy.
Yeah.
Like Hearthstone, it's a card game. It's a lot of like numbers that I'm okay at. But as far as like FPSs, fighting games, couldn't really pick it up. But I love the streaming aspect. I love the entertainment aspect of esports. So,
Definitely agreed.
Yeah.
I love the streaming side of it way more than
Yeah.
competitive, which is kind of surprising because I kind of pin myself as a competitive person, but for some reason competitive video games, I feel like I grew up with video games as a hobby, and so even though they were like horror games or now FPS games, I still find them more as a hobby, something to like relax to and not something to get competitive about. It's kind of like the opposite of people who are traditionally in esports. They see games as something competitive. Mine is like all hobby, all like casual gameplay, and I think that's why I like streaming way more than competitive.
I think one of the things that I think is important for anyone to learn to know, especially if you're, maybe you're tuning into this for the first time, wanting to know what esports is. There's a lot of parallels to regular sports, to your traditional sports. That not everybody can shoot a jump shot consistently, right? But
Yeah.
they love to watch basketball. Not everybody can throw a 50-yard bomb, but they love football.
Yeah.
There's an appreciation for what people can do with their given talents, and it's getting that it's having that same people sort of understanding for people that it's not just you're not just mashing buttons to make your character do something. There is a strategy to this, and there is a discipline to this. But for those people that really appreciate that discipline by being able to watch it, that's the part that this is no different than any other sport that's been out there before.
For sure.
And I think that's kind of something that's pretty interesting. For me, esports has always been something that I've known that I can go like fall on. I played baseball for 14 years, and every day after I'd come home from practice, I went straight to playing some sort of video game, whether it be Madden, like more casual games like Lego Star Wars, and then as I got older into like Call of Duty and Halo, like I learned about esports, and it's kind of interesting because it allows the people that physically aren't gifted towards more traditional sports like football or baseball, they can showcase a skill that they have, where it's not like you're gonna see people like LeBron do the same things that they can do. And I think a player like Tens for Sentinels, that he's a professional Valorant player, like that kid is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think there are very many people in the world that can do what he does.
Yeah.
So there's a certain like respect that is demanded from it, and I think that's kind of what is pretty special about esports.
Agreed.
The next question, y'all kind of already answered it, is how did you get into esports? It was more of like, I'm curious, where did you first hear about it?
Like
what-
esports specifically rather than gaming?
Yeah, more than
Yeah.
gaming.
For me, I'll go ahead and go
Go
first.
ahead, go.
For me, I knew about esports, but I never really followed any teams. I think even now it's kind of funny that I work in esports, and I still don't really follow teams like pro players or pro teams. I watch the pro scene, and but it's more just as like a casual watcher. I really got into esports really when it came to our campus. Like I obviously said before, I had played Overwatch. That was like my introduction into competitive gaming. And I knew that Blizzard had a headquarters in, I believe Austin. Yeah, it was in Austin. So it was kind of like in the back of my mind, like, oh, well, I enjoy this as a hobby. Maybe it can turn into a job or an internship. I know that like we have different esports and gaming companies within Texas. So it was something in the back of my mind. And then it ended up being a perfect transition when Art actually announced we were going to have esports. We were going to have athletics, and along with all of the traditional sports that athletics comes along with, we were going to have esports. And so I thought, well, if I don't have enough experience or anything like that to get into these professional companies, why don't I start from, the ground up? And I politely just strolled into Art's office and was like, please give me a job in esports. And luckily he took my interest of gaming, even if it was just at the very, very casual level. And now here I am running our esports program here on campus. So that's really how I got into esports. I knew it was a thing, but it wasn't something where I had a lot of knowledge or experience in.
So, without giving too much away, because I know that we have some thoughts on what got the university interested in this. I got interested in esports when I saw the opportunities, and I'll go back to what I said before with the parallels with traditional sports, right? That part of esports is really what intrigues me for our students and for anyone that wants to come to A&M San Antonio or has thought about it, because we get a chance to be on the cutting edge of something here at A&M San Antonio. For some institutions that are within the city, it is still sort of it's just at a club level. There's some interest there. There's some schools that are taking it serious now, but I feel like we're ahead of the curve on that. We've got students that are interested in what we are doing here. Got an interest letter from somebody in Louisiana.
Yeah.
We brought somebody down from Wisconsin, right? So we're starting to reach out to students nationally. And all this is doing is we're doing it through our Discord. We're doing it through our online platforms that people are interested in us. My passion in recreational sports and leisure and all those things, it stemmed because I found a way to parlay what I like to do in my spare time into a career. Mm-hmm. And I want to try and give students that same opportunity for them, because that's when you start to enjoy. It's not a job anymore. It's a career. It's an experience. It's the want to pass this on to others. Joey telling his story about how he got into gaming, and now here he is looking at potentials for stemming out into broadcasting or webcasting or just streaming, and those are career opportunities. Same thing with Anna, that recreational side that turned into this can be a serious career. That's the sort of stuff that gets me excited for all of our students. And then what the stuff that goes on behind the scenes as well. You know, like people that want to get into production, into design, into marketing, and getting that opportunity for them to, you know, they don't have to try and, you know, fight 50 million people to get into a Spurs internship.
Yeah.
They can come down here and get that same experience that they would be getting with the Spurs or with anybody else, and they get to do it in an environment that's still growing and budding, and they can put their stamp on it. You know, it's not just this is the Spurs brand, you do it this way because we told you to.
Yeah, I definitely think being here from the ground up really did help me a lot. Obviously there's benefits to going to like a bigger corporation or a bigger company and having an internship there, but I do feel like it would be something where this is the standard, this is what you follow, this is what you're gonna like have to do for us. Whereas when I got here and you said, you know, we're starting from the ground up, you're gonna be a part of this, it was something where I had a lot of creative freedom to try to mold the program, I would say, and really get like 100% hands-on experience. It wasn't something where someone just handed me something and they were like, okay, well, you're gonna follow like a team lead and do exactly what they do. It was something where I got to like see everything hands-on, and I think a lot more employers, I guess, or a lot of other people within the same industry actually appreciate that. They see that like I can create something from the ground up and that I have like 100% interest in what I do, kind of thing.
Gotcha. I think that's actually super interesting because, you know, just for like a little bit into me, I actually transferred from Schreiner University, which is, you know, right down the road. It's about an hour away from San Antonio. And seeing their program, you know, is only about a year old. It was still in its infancy, much like this program. I've gotten to witness two different programs starting up and just seeing the different paths they want to take. So for me, I feel like that's a super interesting experience.
Not a lot of people get to experience it.
Right. So, and then, you know, and that's something that, like you were talking about with the experiences, like the students build the programs, they've helped build the culture and turn the program into, you know, what it could be. And I think something here, like the culture that we have at TAMUSA is like super amazing. Like, everyone's always in Discord every night. We're always playing games together. We're always joking and having a great time. Like, it's just it's a great atmosphere
really
and a place to be a part of.
To kind of add on that before I kind of touch into what got me into esports, that's what I feel like sets us apart from a lot of different programs is our sense of community. Because I've always stressed that, like in the proposals I have to send to Anna, which I'll touch on later, I always kind of emphasize our sense of community. Because we do offer a lot for our students, but we also branch out to the community.
Yeah.
We have Smash Bros tournaments that a lot of people from, or a few people from Trinity University come out and compete in, and even people who play in the tournaments around San Antonio, the locals. And community nights, the nights that I hold, are open to the public. We've had people from New York come in and play from over there. I've had a viewer from Canada come in and play. So our sense of like branching out and making this very comforting and welcoming community, I feel sets us apart from a lot of other programs.
I agree. I think for my own personal philosophy in regards to the program has always been, it's never about, you know, profit or recognition or how many awards we get. I know it's probably not a good thing to say as like someone who's managing competitive teams, but I really don't care about the wins that they get. Yeah, it would be great and they can celebrate and we can like have awards and win championships. But really it's more about if the students enjoy it and if they're actually learning from the experience. I want them to have a good time in esports and remember this fondly whenever they, you know, go off to their bigger careers, go off, even if it's not in esports, go off and have their own lives past collegiate. I want them to look back and think like, this was such a great experience and I hope everybody gets to experience a community like this. That's what I think of when I think of esports.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you want to touch on how you got into esports?
Yeah, I'll touch on it really quick.
It's just before we
we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we got a bunch of topics.
The first time I ever heard about esports was freshman year of high school. It was really brief. It was when the CDL, the Call of Duty League, was like, where MLG was like barely coming up with teams like Optic, and that's the only team I remember from there because I remember the name Nate Shot.
Yeah.
All of my friends would talk about Nate Shot all the time back when he was a pro player rather than an owner of an org. I always hear about that. My friends would talk about his highlights and what he would do, and I was just like, okay, cool. Like, I didn't know what that meant. Wasn't really, like I said, wasn't big into video games. And then coming into college, or coming into here, that's where I got to experience more of the competitive side. Like seeing what is esports about? What is competitive gaming like?
Yeah, what does it look like?
Yeah, so that was like, my first experience was just knowing Heat Shot, but like my, what's the word? My, like, I guess more experience was learning through here and through Anna and everybody else.
Nice.
So I guess that'll kind of segue us into our next question. What are like the day-to-day operations? This is more geared towards you two. For like, content crew. Earlier you were talking about proposals that you sent to Anna, and for you it's mainly running a facility, managing our different social media platforms and that kind of stuff.
Our day-to-day operations, I feel like I've been asked this question before, and it's hard to sum it up because there is so much that goes into running an esports program. A lot of people are like, oh, it's like video games. Can't be that hard. But it's actually, it's a lot that goes into it. And it's kind of like hard to describe because it changes every day. I do something different almost nearly every single day. But I mean, some days I'll manage the facility. I come in here, I check our PCs, I make sure everything's running. I make sure, the room is up to par with others, like the standard for other esports programs. I'm constantly looking at other esports programs to see, what can we do better? What can we improve? That's more on like the lower end of like tasks that I have to do. On like the upper end, a day-to-day kind of task would be thinking about like a 5-year strategy. What do I want this program to look like 5 years down the road? And each year, like, what goal do I want to reach for the team, for the content crew, even for our professional staff? Like, what goals do I want them to reach? It's also about, looking over content crew, like looking over their proposals, which Joey, I'm sure you'll talk about whenever you discuss your like day-to-day operations. Is looking at, their content. What are they going to put out? When are they going to put it out? How are we going to do it? Or do we have to, renovate to make room for a content crew, to make room for a podcast? It's like these kind of things, like people can think of esports as like, okay, well, there's teams, there's a content crew, there's 2 professional staff, but there's, along with all of those little things, there's like 50 things that I have to think about that go along with that. So, I mean, there's just so much to go over that I don't even think I can talk about it in like a 2-minute conversation. And there's definitely like students that are like super interested. They've asked me like, can I do a job shadow? Can I do an internship? I really want to see what goes on behind the scenes. And people have been like asking me before, like, yeah, like what do you do like day to day? Like, is it just checking emails? Is it just, hanging out with the team, making sure practice goes well? It's a lot of nitty gritty tasks that I have to do on a day-to-day basis that people don't really even think about. I think when they think about esports management, all they see is about like 2 to 5% of what it actually takes to manage an entire program. It's kind of insane.
And I imagine it's a little hard to judge everything since, recently we're only seeing these professional leagues. They're just now starting to franchise. So there really is no like, I'm trying to think, like the way that a program should be run. There's no model
like, straight
to
book.
run.
I mean, the way that we run our program can be completely different to how, Boise State runs it, to how UTD runs it, to how Harrisburg, I forgot what their actual.
The one thing that I would like to add though to what Anna does is, and she doesn't realize this, but managing a program like this, more often than not, it's just making sure that everyone is in place to do what they need to do to see the goal through. You know, just like running a rec sports program. You know, I can't do that alone. You know, Trevor, Amber, Anna, and all of the student staff. Like, we don't exist without our students. You know, and it's the same thing. It's just sometimes one day you might be playing, you know, counselor to somebody like, hey, help me understand what I'm doing wrong in this game, or help me understand what I need to do in this class so that I know that I can pass to be eligible. Like, no 2 days will be alike.
Yeah, definitely. It looks different every single day. And I can have a calendar of, okay, I have a meeting this time. I have to go to practice this time. I have to hop in Discord this time. Oh, there's some emails. But I can step into the office at any given day and I'll have like 5-10 different tasks thrown at me last minute, that, just come with dealing with 6 to 9 professional teams and a content crew. And of course, like, all the students are still learning. I have to be patient. I have to, roll with the punches sometimes. So every single day in this program looks very different.
Awesome.
So as far as content crew day to day, so a normal day to day would be checking in with like all the content crew members, seeing how they're doing, what are their plans for their streams. Like I touched on it earlier, but to further talk about it, for all of my streams, I have to send in a proposal. So before the semester starts, I write up. It could be a pretty short proposal, it could be a long proposal,
It could just be,
but it details what I plan on doing, when does it start, what days do I do it, and a brief description of such. So I have to put that together before I even think about streaming, and that it's a one time a semester thing. But say I want to change it up, I gotta write another proposal of a change and then send it to Anna.
Gotcha.
So writing proposals, seeing okay what this works, and kind of to touch more on that. I didn't get to touch on it on the experience. I was the first streamer for esports back in February of 2021. 2021. That's when I first started streaming. Anna and Travis, our former coach, came to me and said, "Hey, we would really like for you to start streaming." They didn't give me like a set schedule. They just told me, "What are your ideas?" Yeah. So I kind of put together Just Chatting Fridays, Minecraft Wednesdays. Then the esports report came about. So I kind of laid the foundation, and then going into the summer is when I put the first proposal together, and that was without Anna and Travis knowing that. I just put it together and I sent it to them. They're like, "Oh, cool!" And from that, we put that to the content crew. So kind of that's where the day-to-day operations came from. A lot of trial and error, what works, what doesn't, and making sure it's like the changes aren't like, "Oh, I didn't like this, I'm just gonna do it without not telling anybody." Like putting that professional, "Hey, I need to send in a proposal if I decide to change something," rather than, "Well, I don't feel like streaming on Wednesdays, I'm just gonna switch it to Thursdays without anybody knowing." And making sure content crew, like Tim, you have to send in a proposal as well, detailing, okay, what do we got to do, what days are we going to do it, what weeks are we going to do it, what's your plans,
Yes.
As far as other operations, starting with broadcasters, they do the play-by-play of our competitive matches. Mm-hmm. I also like to put them in practices. So what I do is I put a professional game, no sound, on the stream, and I tell them, "I want you to cast this match." And they're like, "Okay," and it's kind of awkward. There's nothing going on. You can't hear nothing, but it breaks them out of their shell, and I take notes. That's another thing I have to do is take notes on how they stream it. Is there a lot of ums? Is there too long of breaks? Are they just staring at the screen? Kind of helping them like you would a player, but just on the casting side. As far as the streamers, I stream review. I watch their streams either while it's happening, or I go back and say, "Hey, this is what I think you can do better. This is what I think you did really good." That's what Anna used to do with me whenever I first started streaming. She would watch my streams and be like,
review
"Hey,"
all the mods, take notes. I would sit there for however long his stream was, even if it's like 3 hours, and I would have to sit there like, okay, well, he was on his phone X amount. He was looking down, not at the camera X amount. He said, this many times. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, and that was before Content Crew was a thing. Like, it was an idea, but it wasn't like set in stone yet. And that really helped me transfer it over to managing the Content Crew, because that's what I do with them. Hey, you were looking down, you're being quiet for this time, like just kind of working off that. And then as far as content creators, which Tim falls under, it's okay, what do y'all need? Is there something y'all need for the set? Is there something y'all need for a podcast, for a special like interview thing, And it's just constantly back and forth, and hey, how's everything doing? Does anybody need help? And then on top of that, I have my own streams that, okay, how can I make these better?
Yeah.
Like, is 6 hours too long, or is 6 hours just right? Is 3 hours too long, or like kind of going back and forth?
And it's definitely like an analytical thing. Like, we've definitely sat down and looked at, okay, this amount of people have watched Minecraft Mondays, or we get peak viewership whenever we did a 24-hour stream. And so we kind of like mix and match, or we, do without, we add in different content depending on what people want. So Joey does definitely look at, the analytical side of live streaming as well.
To kind of like, to like what I'm planning on doing this semester, my Fridays streams always used to be 9 to 12 all the time, but I felt like at 11, the viewers would drop off. No one would really stay up that late if it wasn't a really special night. So now I push it back to 7 o'clock. And from there, 7 to 10, now 10 is usually when the most viewers come on. 7's right after dinner. You're not really doing a lot. And that's how I kind of piece together my streams. Same thing for when I did like esports report. It was earlier in the day, around 12 or 1. That's when everybody is having lunch. That's where everybody has their phone. That's where I market it as like, hey, come eat your lunch with me while I'm talking. We're having a good time. Rather than just, I'm going to do it this time. Oh, there's not a lot of viewers. I'm just going to keep going. It's a lot of like, okay, when is the best time? Like Anna said, it's analytical.
Yeah.
And to add on to Joey's whole proposal idea, we started doing that because I don't think a lot of people realize we plan everything that we do like a year ahead. Even at minimum, maybe even like 5 months ahead. Like, we never just like, hey, we should do a podcast. Okay, well, we have a camera. Like, let's just set up. Let's just set up and okay, hi. Like, we had planned this podcast. I think it's actually been in the works for like a year and a half. Like, you had the idea a year and a half ago to do a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just now that we're like, okay, we have the equipment, we have the resources, we have the manpower to actually do a podcast. So let's like really look into it. Let's plan it out. Let's write scripts and see if it's something that we can do. So I don't think a lot of people realize like, oh, they're putting on a tournament. Oh, it's like kind of last minute. I didn't see registration. Like, we actually plan things way ahead before we actually before like the public even like knows that it's gonna happen.
Awesome. Alex, are we still good?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We'll just segue into our last couple of questions here. This is more just for like the general public, people who don't know a whole lot about esports. What do you think separates esports from more traditional sports like football, baseball, soccer, basketball, those kinds of things?
So, I probably would want to say that you might be looking for a specific answer of like getting people to sort of relate to stuff. As this is starting to adapt, as we're starting to see what esports can be, I don't necessarily like to show the differences as much as show the parallels. And I've already said that you're probably tired of that word. But show to me this is no different than football. And I love football. I love sports. I think a lot of us can say that there is probably a sport that we follow that we just like that's outside of the esports realm.
Yeah.
But there are so many things that I can point to with just listen to these two talk about the things that, I used to tell this to Travis before he left. Like, I don't necessarily want to know how the sausage is made. I just want to know that the sausage is made and it tastes good. Mm-hmm. It's, it can be a terrible comparison or analogy, but what I'm trying to get across is that there is a lot of stuff that goes into this the Spurs don't just roll out of basketball and say, yeah, we're going to have a game against the Pacers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There are things behind the scenes that go on to make that stuff work to where it's an entertaining experience. And the things that I would say is that while there might be some differences that are where esports is still in its infancy, there's so many more comparisons where I would say, like, if people are having a hard time figuring out what they want to do, you need to look at this opportunity. You need to look at the careers, and if you've ever enjoyed gaming, even if you play a game on your phone, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes on making sure that experience is enjoyable to you. You have no idea the career opportunities that could be there. Even the marketing side, even hey, I didn't know that there was a new version of Candy Crush, or I don't know, just tossing that stuff out there to see what sticks. And so that's why I like to compare this to, let's look at what things are that are relatable to people so that they can see that there's an opportunity here. Because that, I was just in awe to hear of the things that they're doing. And they do it for the love of developing this thing. And that's the one thing I've loved about esports since we started getting into it, is that there's such a sense of community even in the esports world. Everybody wants to see this thing successful at any school. And that's the part that I really love about this. While people want to win and people want to win championships, they want to have competition to compete against.
Yeah.
And they want to see it grow. So to me, while I understand why we asked that question, it's more about, man, there's so many more similarities to traditional sports that I want to celebrate those things with esports to show that we need great people that have a background in this stuff to see it take off and really blow this thing out of the water.
Awesome.
That's a good answer.
That's a great answer. I think
now I'll talk about the differences. I don't think, like, difference-wise, I think a lot of people, whenever they think, what's the difference between esports and, traditional sports? Obviously, there is a difference. I think it's more on, like, people see it as, like, well, it's not a real sport because it's a video game. They see video games as a hobby. And I mean, that's how I was. I saw video games as a hobby. I didn't see it as a sport. So kind of gearing that more towards the people that are like, well, esports is gaming, not a real sport. I would say it is similar to traditional sports where, there is competition, there is practice that goes into it. But rather than, physical practice, rather than actually, going to a weight room, making sure you're able to, have the strength to do sports, making sure you have, the right form to toss a football or to shoot a basketball. It's more on the mental side for video games. It's more about strategic planning. You go into a game, you're with your teammates, you're, trying to out-mental your opponent rather than out-strength your opponent.
Yeah.
I think that's the main difference that people don't really, understand between esports and traditional sports. They see only the physical side and to the word sport. And so that's why they're like, well, it's a video game. Like, I don't see why it's like an athletic kind of program. But it's definitely something where, student athletes within esports, they still put in the practice, they still put in the teamwork, they still need to communicate, and they still need to create a plan. That's exactly what you would do in a traditional sport. So I think that's like the difference, but also there's so many similarities to it.
Well, I think you see in some of your traditional sport athletes, your student athletes, will transition over to esports.
Yeah, definitely.
I've seen versions of that from other institutions where it's like, I was on the baseball team, I was the captain of the baseball team. I ended up hurting my shoulder, and I was in rehab for a little bit, but I was also playing these games, and I saw an opportunity to try out, and I was really good at this game, and now I'm on the esports team.
Having the opportunity to still have that team feeling, to still have that family, is actually really comforting to a lot of traditional athletes that maybe got hurt, or traditional athletics weren't an option for them. Going on to the collegiate football scene, that's a huge scene. Maybe not everybody is going to make it into that. So going into esports, they still have that sense of community. It's kind of interesting to see the parallel or the funnel of traditional athletes to esports athletes.
Awesome. Well, I just have a random question here at the very end. favorite game either coming out. I know you touched on NCAA. Could we potentially see a special art stream?
You know what? Absolutely. You can go. You know, we're having this recorded.
We're writing it
Write
down.
this down, write this
We
down.
have it.
down,
We
write
have
this
it.
down, write
We
this
have
down.
it.
Book it. There you go. Book it.
Book the date.
The second that comes out, you best believe I'm going to get that game, and we're going to start. I'm going to start training again. I'd love to stream it.
What was the game called?
It's NCAA Football.
NCAA.
Yeah,
So
Maybe that can be
just
like
a quick
PS4.
backstory for the reason they stopped making it was because of name, image, and likeness rights. Basically, student athletes were not getting paid for their images, but they were their images were very clearly being used by EA Sports. So there was a lawsuit that got put out there, and there was just no way that EA Sports was going to be able to continue that platform. They still had Madden and all these other things, so they just basically stopped making the game. Well, now with this name, image, and likeness stuff with college athletics, it's become much more of a reality. And I think a lot of people really miss the game. So, you know, again, folks that are now probably in their, you know, late 30s, early 40s, some of my friends that were coaches, like we used to stay up on weekends, like go through the weekends playing franchise mode or you know, scouting our own teams and playing as a specific college and getting coaching offers to go to different games, different schools and stuff like that. To know that was really what hooked me into that gaming scene, but also gave me that idea of, like, you know, getting into the world of university athletics, sports, recreation, because that, you know, there were a lot of similarities.
Awesome.
For sure, yeah.
Nice. Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
What
take
game
it away.
I'm interested in?
You're interested in your favorite game?
You know, I would say a horror game, but I'll stick to esports for now. Horror games, I'll just play like whenever they come out or whenever I feel like, oh, you know, Resident Evil, I feel the urge to play it again. That's usually what happens. As for a game that I'm gonna be on the grind for again is actually Valorant, and which you're
if nobody
for the podcast, he's actually in my duo in Valorant, but he's way better than me. He's radiant to me.
Is he carrying? Is he carrying you, like, you know?
I'm tired of everyone saying Tim carries me. I'm better. Okay.
Sore subject.
Hey,
It's sore subject. Don't talk about it.
this is
Listen.
good. It's good for podcasts, though. Hey.
Tim's back was hurting.
Listen, I'm okay. I'm
She
decent
can
at the
hold her
game.
own.
I'm decent at the game. I surprise us every once in a while.
You do.
Screaming
There's
and
some-
all, though,
There are some
but-
times where you do some crazy things, and
You're like, there's no
I'm
way.
not sure if it was intentional, but it looked great. So
It's for the views.
exactly.
I'm on the grind again. I'm determined to get gold again, because
Go
I had
for it.
taken like a 4-month break.
Yeah, you
From
grinded the month for the
Yeah.
game for 4 months, and then you just
I
stopped
had grinded
playing.
my way into gold, and then I took a huge break because the semester had started, and
Yep.
you know I had work and school, so I took a huge break from Valorant. Hopped back on. I'm terrible. I'm absolutely terrible. So I think Valorant is a game that I'm gonna be on the grind for again.
Well, I mean, I'm personally excited to see that.
So, my favorite game out of like the competitive games that we offer has to be Hearthstone, because I feel like that's a game where you don't need to be. Because I feel like the other ones you have to have some kind of physical attribute, aiming, hand-eye coordination,
Reaction time. Yeah, all
stuff
that.
like that, hit scan or anything like that. You in all the other games, Rocket League, Smash, Valorant,
Overwatch.
all of them.
Yeah.
But I feel like Hearthstone is just, you gotta know the decks, you gotta know the cards. Like, it's very similar to Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Where you gotta know how much mana you have, how much it's numbers, it's strategy. Do I play this card this turn? Do I hold it? And it's a lot of like, should I not? And I feel like that's where it's even, where I don't need a physical attribute. It's more like mental. It's more like a chess game. That's why I really like the game, and I can play it for hours. And I ranked up. I mean, I was from bronze to legend. I went from a low silver to low gold, diamond in like 3 months.
Nice.
because how much I really liked that game. I just grinded through the whole summer and got up there with the rest of my teammates.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But yeah, Hearthstone, really love that game.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any more questions.
Nice.
If anyone has any thoughts, anyone wants to plug anything.
You'll follow me at.
No, I'm really excited to see the rest of this podcast, other episodes, other people that you bring on. I'm glad that we finally got it up and going. Like I said, this took a year of planning to actually get to where we are. So I'm excited to see where it goes, and I hope you enjoy the content you make along the way.
I'm having a blast. I just want to say thank you guys for coming on. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. This will be uploaded every 2 weeks, so tune into our YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
All right.
Bye. And there was 4
He's not
different
gonna know when
ones.
to cut. He's gonna be like,
3,
okay, do I
2,
cut now?
1.
There we
Nice.
go. Alex, edit that out. Edit that.